Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah. Give Dennis a big round of applause. This guy is absolutely crushing it here in South Carolina. Thank you for letting us be a part of this event. I'm excited to be here and talk about my favorite thing, which is Bitcoin mining, digital asset mining. Here with some of the innovators in the space to talk to you about Bitcoin mining. I'm going to let them quickly introduce themselves, talk a little bit about what they're doing, and then we'll jump right into the conversation. Go right down the line. Michael?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Michael Bolick. I'm with Trace Blockchain. We used to be called Trace Mining. We started in 2018. We were one of the first mines, in the state. Certainly, we're one of the largest immersion mining companies in the state. We got into that early on, using dielectric fluid, immersing air miners in fluid. We have a What's Miner MicroBT channel on YouTube. More recently, we've been diverging into a number of different types of technologies, including the Bitmain, the new hydro systems. So we're really excited to see other folks like BV Power. I was very pleased to sit in on their opening, which was really an attractive site. We're in Greer, South Carolina, and look forward to meeting you guys.
Thanks, Michael. This is Jerry Tang, VCV Digital. We are a newcomer to South Carolina. Great state to do business. We are not far away from you in Greer. We just opened up a data center with just a little bit over 10,000 machines last week. So excited.
Hey guys, I'm Russell Cann. I was born and raised here in South Carolina. Got into digital assets in 2014. I started mining in South Carolina in 2017. And I've since, the past 5 years, grown Core Scientific to the largest Bitcoin miner in the world. Our infrastructure represents 10% of the global network as I sit here today. At the end of December, we'll be at 15% of the global network. I tried my damnedest to grow it in South Carolina, but have a little data center there in Columbia. We have large facilities in North Carolina, Georgia, Kentucky, Oklahoma, Texas, and North Dakota. As we sit here right now, I checked this morning, we were burning 702 megawatts of power. And then this year, we'll be right at 1.1 gigawatts, about 300,000 machines or so, something like that. I can answer any questions you guys have.
Just a little bit of hash rate. Just a small amount percentage. We're going to go down the line real quickly and jump right into South Carolina and why South Carolina is a great place to do business. Jerry brought it up and said he was happy to be here, happy to be in South Carolina. Great place to do business, great place to mine. We'll start with Michael, go to Jerry, then to Russell. Talk a little bit about South Carolina and why you think this is a great state to be doing business.
I graduated from NC State a long time ago when they let somebody with my intellect in to get a degree in chemical engineering back then. I'm a serial entrepreneur. For the majority of my career, I was working for the man, so to speak, moved my way through, ultimately landed as a facilities manager for a pharmaceutical plant in Greenville. As I traveled throughout the Southeast, I recognized, in particular the upstate, but all of South Carolina as a pro-business, right-to-work state, an outfit that, if you will, if you think about the state as an outfit, an organizational approach that says, we want business to be successful here, we want to be good stewards of the environment, we're blessed with just beauty from the mountains to the ocean, but really it's the mindset, the can-do spirit of being pro-business and pro-quality of life. So I chose to land here, and I don't plan on leaving. I was a serial entrepreneur after my corporate experience and started off in genetics and helped grow the South Carolina Bio organization years ago. I transitioned, and my business partner was in the 2016-2017 time frame, was into Bitcoin mining when I didn't even know what Bitcoin was. And he talked to me in the 2017 time frame, and we started building out in that time frame. And you know, the truth is, I really didn't know why we would do it here, except that I love doing business here. You know, Bitcoin mining was relatively new for me. But I won't steal too much of the time here, but I will say that as I've looked back over the last 5 years, we happen to be blessed to be at the right place at the right time, because this transition towards greener mining and the things that really I think Elon Musk kind of kicked off with his tweets around his initial investments and the transition into really balance sheets carrying some of those types of assets, which turned out to be a great godsend for him, but then he got all the backlash on, well, what about the energy footprint? And we can argue about carbon footprint issues, but at the end of the day, we all want to be good stewards. And to have power suppliers like Duke, who are primarily providing us power in a way that's, by most measures, more of a lower cost footprint with hydro and nuclear. We just happen to be in kind of the sweet spot. It kind of extends up in the North Carolina area. And you know, I don't see this as a zero-sum game. I see this as a kind of all-hands winning opportunity. With the transition from mining from the east, and with China shutting down, and that transition towards the west, I think this is a great opportunity for us. And I think South Carolina is And as much as I thought 10 years ago that life sciences could be really, really great, that really bore fruit. I now am convinced that blockchain technology and indeed mining, especially as we work as good stewards of the folks that can demonstrate that this kind of operation can be good not only for ourselves and our benefactors, our investors and our families, but also for our communities, that we can give back and we can engage. I think there's a really good opportunity for us to begin to work together to build this industry association so that it will be even more welcoming to other folks.
Jerry's the latest one to come, as you said. You mentioned what was the big thing that drew you to South Carolina?
Yeah, I live in New York State, so I think it's not even close. New York and South Carolina in terms of welcoming for new businesses. I tried in New York, trust me, in upstate. It just didn't work. Another thing is actually the food scene here is pretty good. Greenville, Charleston. These are not boring places like, kind of many other mining farms are, in the middle of nowhere. This is feel like in civilization. While we can get a phenomenal, electricity rate. As Michael has said, we have, I think, over 50, maybe 60% in renewable, including solar, wind, hydro, and the nuclear. I think the balancing authority, the Carolinas, constantly export power to other grids, actually. So it kind of makes sense to use the power within the Carolinas to create jobs and create tax revenues for Curtis. So we're happy to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you here. So then also, Russell, as a native, I'm glad you're happy to see people come into your state. Talk about a little bit what your views are on South Carolina.
A couple of the good things about mining, why we want it in the state, guys. I have a large facility in Marble, North Carolina. It's a little town in Cherokee County. And the town's got 300 people. We hire 70. My payroll there is about $6 million. I get my best kids out of Lowe's. I go there and I look for the kid that knows what he's doing in the electronics department or is messing around, tinkering with those kind of things, and then we train them up. And now we do ASIC level chip repair by hand. Something that was built by a robot is repaired by hand. So mining it's not going to have 1,000 jobs, but it's going to have some very good paying jobs. It's going to have tech jobs. And separate to that, it's going to we also bring in software engineers. So there's going to be a lot of ancillary tech roles that associate with mining, especially in the Bitcoin world. So as a South Carolinian, I would love to see more mining in the state. That's what I told Dennis. Duke Power is pretty good to deal with. We're probably one of their largest clients. As we sit here today, we spend about $300 million a year on power. And we're grid connected, so that means because we're grid connected, other than the 6 or 8 or 10% dividend that every state lets power companies have, most of that money goes back into the utility grid. So Duke's pretty good to deal with. TVA is pretty good to deal with. We don't have those guys here in South Carolina. Dominion is very difficult to deal with. So if anyone here from Dominion, I'd love to help educate you on why you want a full base load that can be turned off and turned on in 6 or 8 seconds, because we do that in Texas. Santee Cooper, those poor fellas. If anyone's here from Santee Cooper, I don't mean to talk bad about you, but again, I'd love to educate you on a continuous base load and why that's important for your overall network grid. So in South Carolina, the business environment is strong. I've grown a lot of companies here and exited. I live here. My company, we're headquartered in Texas, but I said when I sold my company to what is now Core Scientific, I said I'm never leaving South Carolina. I love it here, and I commute to Austin 2 or 3 times a month because of it. But I think here in South Carolina, our business environment is strong, our employee base is strong. We have an employee base here that's got a good base skill set. You can learn and teach folks. And you can get them just about anywhere. So if we're looking at mining, the best thing, if you want to think about it, is going from an old manufacturing economy into the new economy. Matter of fact, that same facility I just talked about in Marble was a textile plant. So literally it was a textile plant, and the first employee there, an old electrical engineer named Jack. Jack was at that textile plant as a boy, went to NC State, got his engineering degree, went back, became the engineer for that plant, kept the thing dormant, and they hired him to maintain the plant, and then he was our first employee there, and now he's literally one of the best facilities guys for crypto mining in the country. And again, it's just interesting to see that technology of textile manufacturing transformed now into digital asset mining. So, and I share that here in the room with South Carolinians because we have a very similar historic background with the textile industry and heavy manufacturing that has changed. So think about those little towns that have excess generation or excess transmission already built, where there's power and has a workforce that's trainable. Mining is a definite opportunity for something like that. And when I say mining, I really just mean digital asset process. If everyone doesn't understand, mining is really just processing data. We call it mining, but that's not what it is. It's literally computers processing data. So, we call it mining, but that's not what it is.
We'll do questions a little bit at the end here in a second. So now we've established South Carolina, great place to do business, great place to come, be a Bitcoin miner. But, some of you, maybe all of you, Michael, I don't know as well, but we know that Jerry's tried it in New York. We know, Russell, obviously you're all over the country. Talk a little bit about some of the things that you've seen maybe outside of South Carolina, or some of the ideas that you guys are thinking about to bring to South Carolina. What are some changes? Is it a policy change? Is it a change with the public utility commissions? Are there anything that you're seeing out there across the country, or maybe the world, that you think South Carolina could mimic or make improvements on and bring here to the state? And I'll let anybody kind of jump in on that one.
Can I jump in first? I would say maybe a sales tax exemption would be very helpful, like Kentucky, Minnesota, they all offer that. Right now, there is a exemption, but only for massive, data center that has 75 million or above investments.
Yeah, I would say our experience with SC Bio over time, I think, informs at least my thoughts on how we might work together. And that's number one, to make sure that government doesn't get in the way. And I refer to some of the New York, the new announcements up there about pushing people out of the state because we don't like Bitcoin mining because it's bad for the environment. Every supplier of energy, not every, but the energy source is important. And if it's a coal-fired plant, then I get it, right? But here in the state, especially with the type of power that we're blessed to have access to, and there's excess power there, and we bring all the economic benefit, just getting the knowledge to the ears of the legislators. So I give Dennis the full credit that he's begun that dialogue. But folks like us that step up and we run organizations, we hire people, we've done investments, we've been here for a while, and we can back him up and back the leaders of this organization up from an economic perspective. In my experience, the legislators are more willing to listen when they understand that there's jobs and taxes and business opportunities that are coming behind it. It's not just a selfish, grubby kind of mindset. It's more of this is good for our state and here's why. And you kind of step back and just say, we don't really want anything except just stay out of the way. And if you want to encourage it, if you want more like us, then here's some things that you might do. And that worked really well for the life sciences over the last 10 years. The Secretary of Commerce has really kind of leaned in on that through several administrations, and that's grown, and the legislature has really been listening. And I really see this as a rinse and repeat opportunity with blockchain. And I'll stop after this. I'll just say we don't call ourselves trace mining anymore because we started with just mining, just air mining. And as we got into the idea of becoming more of a boutique type service and support type offering, helping other people do mining, we're not going to be a core scientific. We're a tiny little pipsqueak compared to them. But we are innovative, and we've developed our own intellectual property around how we do immersion mining. We're building out capabilities of helping other folks get into some of the new technologies like the new hydro systems. And as much as there is an opportunity to do this, it's not easy if you don't know what you're doing. If you're trying to learn like the way we did from the beginning, you make a lot of mistakes. And so here in South Carolina, as we build this industry association, having the opportunity to have folks come and say, well, could we cross-train some folks on how to do service and support? Maybe we don't need to do all the chip repairs. Maybe we could work with you guys and we could give you guys a cash stream if you have interest. If we don't see ourselves as competitors but collaborators within the state, I think there's opportunities there where we could be better together than separate. So that's the kind of thing I'd like to see us do.
And real quickly, something you said earlier that was really important was this idea of the benefits of Bitcoin mining. And I'll probably go to Russell here on this next one just to spread out the time here. But like, imagine you're in a room full of elected leaders and officials. I'm sure there's obviously some here today. What's the big thing that you say to them that Bitcoin mining has to offer their state?
So it's a couple of things. I'm going to echo something that Jerry said though about sales tax and everything. I live here, right, guys? I want everything to be good for South Carolina. We have all kinds of problems. There's so many great things, but sales tax on Bitcoin hardware, because it has such a quick life and it's mobile, is a bad idea. So Kentucky has some real good laws. We helped write those. We're just about to pass some similar things in Oklahoma. We helped pass the ones in Georgia. And so anyone that's in that space, happy to show you why it's important, because when you have an industry that's very mobile like that, you want to tax us in different ways. Like, we pay enormous taxes on our power bill. We pay enormous payroll taxes. We pay property taxes. But taxing a piece of equipment that has a shorter life and taxing it at its full value at the beginning every year as a use tax, like they do in Texas, which is asinine, there's some bad ideas there. But going back to some of the benefits, there's a couple very quick benefits. In tech, God bless everyone. I highly encourage. I got my own daughter in college getting an IT degree, but you don't need that. In tech today, skill sets can be trained. And that means you can take a workforce just about anywhere, and if they want to work and they have good hands, good eyes, and are willing to put the time in, they can be trained. So one, mining can be located anywhere. It really can be. It can be in the smallest town. Marble, North Carolina has 300 people in it. Denton has about 30,000. We're right outside of Paducah in a place called Calvert City, Kentucky, that's got 1,200 people lives there. So you can put it anywhere. It can also go into places where manufacturing used to exist but no longer does. And why that's important is because we as a society here in the state of South Carolina, we've already paid for the utility infrastructure. So if there's transportation, there's substations, transmission, and substations, that kind of stuff, we've already made that investment. Let's continue to use that investment versus having a manufacturing facility that's sitting dormant or is being used as a mini storage or something. So you can use old infrastructure, and we can go anywhere, and we can train and staff. And by the way, pay is great. Like, our payroll, we're 3 or 4x what folks would make literally in the same town down the road, and that has a tremendous impact on local communities. Okay, so.
Let's take the last 3 minutes that we got to answer a couple of questions. Thank you, everybody, for coming to the panel. Appreciate all of your input. I saw some hands go up earlier in the back.
So, talk about the textile mill issue. So, have any of your textile mills that you've come back to have existing hydropower where they have plants on site, and how does that work for you? Are you leveraging the power and possibly the access to the cool water for cooling, things like that?
Yeah, so I'm just going to go back to Marble again because it's super close. If anyone ever wants to see it, I'm happy to do a tour. It's connected to 2 hydro plants. We're grid connected, so in Marble I have to report my grid mix, which is 56% renewable. But if you follow the lines, one goes to the Hiawassee Dam and the other goes to the Lake Fontana Dam.
On-site hydropower.
Oh, so we don't have that there, but yes, that is a great thing. On-site hydro, and it really works for little textiles, especially kind of around in the southeast. Well, Packlet Energy, that's where you get your power from. That's what they started out as.
We got two mills like that. We're also seeing opportunities.
Oh.
Thinking about that, how does that
You could send an RFP out and you'd have 10 miners say, yeah, I'll jump on that in a heartbeat, because your power costs are there, good ESG. Textile facilities actually make great mining facilities because the textile machines themselves, they take a lot, they get hot just like miners do. So the airflow in the plant's already designed to move that heat, so they really work well.
Cool. Hey, I was curious, Georgia, of course, is known as being a big mining state. Does that help the Carolinas get people kind of heckled up to say we can do as well or better?
Yeah, I would just say, I keep going back to SE Bio because it's, once we've seen something work, you tend to go back to what worked for you in the past. We were, in South Carolina, we were the only state that didn't have a life sciences focus for industry group. We were like the black hole in the Southeast. And all the other states around us were like, come on, guys, get your game together, right? So to the extent that there are states in our region that are also being successful, I think part of it is a cultural aspect of the types of employees you can bring, and also the mindset of the local legislatures, and the shifts in blue and red, the legislature. But generally speaking, the South is different from other parts of the country. So to the extent that Georgia is successful in making things happen, I'd love to have us begin to compare notes with their industry association and find best practices and cross-training, and all that's real positive from my view.
And legislation. Don't be afraid to copy other states' legislation that's working. Georgia's got some good legislation. Like I said, Kentucky now, Oklahoma, Wyoming's got some good legislation. Don't be afraid to copy the legislation. The problems in Georgia right now are related to natural gas. So Georgia's at the tail end of 2 natural gas lines, so the price of natural gas is very expensive in Georgia, and the Vogtle nuclear plant is about 2 years late. Well, it's got all kinds of problems, but it's several years late, so that's the only issues in Georgia right now. But you're right, mining in Georgia is going to be a good thing. It's already growing.
I have a couple quick questions. So, are any of you going to be taking advantage of the new Inflation Reduction Act credits with solar or battery storage? That's the first one. Second one is interesting how Ethereum has moved, or Ether has moved to basically a lottery system in order to reduce their costs as far as energy consumption is concerned. I'd like to know what your thoughts are on that. And then the nuclear, like I know that we had the plant failure here in South Carolina. Is there any mobilization from the community, the Bitcoin community, in order to try to get, basically more nuclear in the Carolinas?
I can take a stab at that. So yeah, we have been looking at renewable and battery storage pretty intensely in the past 12 months. I think one thing about Bitcoin mining is you cannot look at it kind of isolated as a consumer. I think there's something to do between Bitcoin mining as a flexible, movable, and pretty large, energy consumer, and how that can interact with the deployment of solar panels, wind farms, and a battery. There's definitely something to do there, and you have the access to large, substations and the grid, which is a kind of rare resource. So there's definitely something there between energy and Bitcoin mining. I would say in certain grids like PJM, which is the largest in the nation, they have actually stopped taking new applications for renewable deployments. So if you can create a business model where you use Bitcoin mining as a captive consumer to create solar panels, that would drastically shorten the deployment timeline. And as to the Ethereum merge question, yes, it's going to, it's done, POS, so there's no more mining. I think, I guess some miners are going to ETHW or other type of POW chains. But I think one thing is the GPUs, they don't consume as much power in the first place, so.
Do you see Bitcoin transitioning to that type of model? Or
It's hard to see in the short to medium term. I believe POW just provides a lot more decentralization than POS. That's why even Gary Gensler said Bitcoin is the only decentralized cryptocurrency.
Yeah, when we renamed our company to Trace Blockchains, because we moved into proof of stake block production. So we're one of the largest EOS block producers, even though we're relatively small on the global scale. And we see a potential future for proof of stake opportunities and NFTs and structuring what we call the virtual reality transition. So there'll be a lot of those activities. I just agree. I don't think Bitcoin's going away, and I think that we look at Bitcoin as digital gold. And so you want as much decentralization and security in that structure as we can get. And people are pushing for enhanced transaction speeds and things, but we don't ever see it becoming a competitor to like EOS or some of these other proof of stake because it's just serving a different function.
what about the nuclear question? Nobody's touched
Yeah.
on that yet.
Just real quick. So proof of stake, proof of work, the economics are just very different. I'm a big fan of proof of stake for a lot of applications, but proof of work, as he mentioned, the decentralization is much better for certain applications. So proof of stake, there's a world where proof of stake works really well and a world where proof of work works really well. On the nuclear, I'm a huge fan of nuclear. I don't see us cranking up any old nuclear plants, but why nuclear works really well with Bitcoin mining is the same reason Jerry just mentioned on solar. Nuclear, once you turn it on, it just runs. So run it at full the whole time, and then when you need that excess power to the grid for air conditionings in hospitals, you just turn Bitcoin mining off, but that nuke plant keeps going. So a big fan of nuke, and nuke blended with wind and solar, and hydro, that's a hell of a combo.
Well, what are you guys doing what is the industry doing to lobby for more nuclear?
Well, the first thing we're doing is working to create a blockchain industry affiliate here in South Carolina so we can begin that conversation. So kudos to Dennis.
Yeah, I mean, there's a significant amount of work underway by people who are entirely focused on nuclear as a power asset, and so there's quite a bit happening in the space. So that was enough. We ran out of time. We're pretty much done here, but I want to give you guys a round of applause to Russell, Jerry, Michael.